Hey guys, this is Ryan with Mama on Mission, and today I'm joining in a collab, and it's a homeschool curriculum review collab. And the last year, I started my YouTube in the summertime, so I told you about my previous year's curriculum and what I wanted to do for this year. And I had planned to do that again this year, but last year I did more of I went student by student, so I did both of my sons separately. But this year I got invited to this collab, and I think it's going to be a little bit better because it is subject by subject. So today, when you watch us, it will be Friday, and the next 3 Fridays we will release a video, each on a different subject. You'll have science, geography and history, language arts, and math. So this way it will be easier for you if you just are looking for one subject. You can look through the playlist and for that day and see all the different math curriculums that we use. And this will also give you a better variety instead of just seeing what I use. There will be other moms on here. If you don't like what I'm using and you're wanting to get more ideas, you can watch the playlist and find out what other moms are using and how they liked it. We have 4 hosts for this collab that I'm going to shout out real quick, and I will link their channels down below, so go check them out. We have April over at The Simple Rugged Path, Michelle at The Brave Homeschooling Mama, Ashley at Joyful Noise Living, and Ingrid at Mommy and Mia Homeschool Chronicles. They are all 4 great homeschool channels, so check them out. Okay, so what I used for science this year for both of my boys is Exploring Creation with Human Anatomy and Physiology. Sorry. Last year we did Apologia. This is put out by Apologia, by the way. We did Exploring Creation. It was the sea animals. I don't remember what the actual name of it is, but it was sea creatures. And we love Apologia around here. What I really like is, well, there's several things I really like, but first I'm going to show you kind of chapter by chapter. There was 14 lessons this year. There was an introduction lesson, so just telling kind of about the body and mostly talking about cells and stuff. And then the second lesson was on the skeletal system, then a muscular system, then digestive and renal systems. Then lesson 5 was health and nutrition. Lesson 6 was the respiratory system. 7 was about the blood. 8 was the cardiovascular system. 9 was the nervous and endocrine systems. And then lesson 10 was the nervous system extended. So it kind of went into further detail. Then lesson 11 was your senses. Lesson 12 was integumentary. Lesson 13 was lymphatic and immune systems. And lesson 14 was growth and development. And we actually just finished this today. So this was kind of perfect timing on our part. And I will give you a look at kind of what this looks like on the inside if you've never had any Apologia books before. A lot of good illustrations and photographs. I like how they there's pictures everywhere, and they actually like give you diagrams of what's going on. And I'm very much a visual learner, so that helps me out a lot. And then every so often there is a try this, which is usually like a smaller experiment, not a big heavy duty experiment. And then at the end of each lesson, they have like kind of the bigger experiments to do. I don't think, let me see. Yeah, there's like a project at the end. This one says design a science fair project. And it just has several different ideas of what you could do for a bigger project. Thankfully for us, we did this with our homeschool co-op, and they did all of the big, not all of them, they did a lot of the bigger experiments, so I did not have to do those at home. Science is not my favorite subject by any means, and I didn't really want to do some of the bigger experiments. The try this things were typically things that I could collect at home. We could do the experiment real quick. Sometimes they were simply just kind of something to think about and talk about. So we did a lot of the try this experiments, but we saved those bigger things for co-op, which I was very thankful that I did not have to do those. So along with, and I should say, I have the MP3 to this because it's a lot of reading, as you could tell. And But how it's written is not, it looks like kind of a heavy duty textbook. How it's written is not so much like a textbook. It is very conversationally written. It easily flows in with the Charlotte Mason classical style of homeschool. But what I like about it is that it's not so Charlotte Mason-y that it's just like, read this and go explore things. It, breaks down what to do each day so my type A doesn't go crazy. Which I'll show you that in a minute. But this also, the reason why I got the MP3 was because that's a lot of reading. And our history is the same way. It's a lot of reading. And then when you add that to our read alouds and then me just having to talk to teach, math and whatever else, my voice was done by the end of the day and I was tired of reading. So I got the MP3 for this and we would play it typically while we were eating lunch. And then we would do the activities afterward, the hands-on things. And that's where this comes in. This is the Junior Anatomy Notebooking Journal. And for every elementary level of Apologia, they have a notebooking journal, and you can either get the junior or the regular. And the junior just has a little bit less handwriting, and just some of the things are a little bit easier, but it's the same material inside. I'm just trying to cover up my son's name up there, but as you can see, it's pretty thick. It was a little intimidating when I first got one last year with our Apologia, but you can very easily tailor it to what you need it to be. We did not do every single thing in here, but I will show you kind of what types of things are in here. So each lesson always starts out with some coloring sheets, if I can find them. Okay, so this was obviously about the digestive system, so there were some coloring sheets, so I would give those to them on day one of a lesson, and I'll show you how those are broken up in a minute. And my sons would just color those while they were listening, after they were done eating lunch. As they were listening to the MP3, they would just color on those, keep their hands busy, and then each lesson has a little section for taking notes. Again, my son is only in second grade, so sometimes I made him, sometimes I didn't. Because then there was also always something like this where you would label parts, or sometimes it would be like a, what's that word? Crossword or something like that, where they were having to look up definitions, or they were having to look up diagrams and figure out what things were and where they went in the body. So I didn't make him take notes as much. And then there's always a little something extra. This one was a digestive comic. They loved doing this year. You had to make a comic strip about food's journey from beginning to end, which of course with little boys, the end part was fun for them. And then here's one of those crosswords I was telling you about. We did do those. You can't really see, but we did those. And then at the very end, that one had a comic, but then on some of them, or on a lot of them, you would have some sort of booklet you could put together. This is like a fan book, I think is what they called it. And then you would write notes about what you learned about each thing. This one is talking about recessive genes, growth facts, Gregor-Mendel. Anyway, and then you would make these little books that can stick in here, and then later on they can go back and look at those. Sometimes when this they actually did in their co-op class. Sometimes in the notes section, I would just let them draw, and they did this in co-op too. And their teacher was really good this year. She had them cut out different things to put in there, like talking about cleanliness and stuff. They put little Purell wipes in there. So an easier way for a second grader to be able to take notes without having to take notes. And then there were sometimes these little lift the flaps where you could learn your vocabulary words. Anyway, it's chock full of stuff like that. We did not get to all of it because there's a lot in there, but we did quite a bit of it. And that was super helpful. Let's see. I will show you real quick about kind of how it's set up. The highlighting for me is the pink was stuff they were going to do in co-op, so I didn't want to copy it at home, and the yellow was stuff that I wanted to try at home. So this is week 10, day 1, day 2. They set it up kind of to do 2 days a week. Toward the beginning of the year, I did it differently than I did toward the end. I'll hit on that in a minute. So then this tells you what to read and then what to do in your notebook each time. And again, we didn't do it all. As you can see, there's several things that There's no highlighting because we just didn't do it. We did do all the reading though. And this would last you, I think it would be 28 weeks total if you did it 2 times a week. So the questions that we are supposed to answer about our curriculum for this collaboration are, did we have any mid-year switches? I did not, as far as the curriculum itself. I did not switch curriculums mid-year at all. I did, this wasn't mid-year, this was the whole year I did this, but I did add some stuff in. We used this at the beginning of each lesson. The first day that we were introducing a lesson, we would find whatever it was we were talking about. So let's say we were talking about the respiratory system. So I would turn it to this page, you can see, and we would just kind of go over this, look at these diagrams. These are kind of big, fun books for them. And this is kind of like very basic first encyclopedia of the human body from Usborne. So it just kind of gave them the gist of what we were going to be talking about. Then on the last day, I would use this Usborne book, the complete book of the human body, and it's a little more detailed, like some more words. Here's about blood, some more detailed pictures than what the other one had. And so we would find whatever the lesson was about for that week or that couple weeks. It would take you to go through a lesson and read about it. And here on the last day is kind of more of like a recap of what we had learned. And a side note, I'm having an Usborne party in June if you need any of this kind of stuff. So get a hold of me if you want to be a part of that. But I will let you know, this one is pretty basic. This one, today we finished with the a little bit of reproductive type stuff. This one does go in a little more depth. So if you ever get this book, I wouldn't just hand it off to any kid unless they know about all that already. Just a heads up. So I did not make any switches mid-year, but I did add this at the beginning of the year to our Apologia. Another question we were supposed to answer was, if there any pros, or what were the pros and cons of the curriculum? I have a lot of pros. This is definitely a biblically sound curriculum, so if that is not what you're looking for, I would not recommend it. I mean, I guess you could try to omit that, but it's kind of all over about who created us and why we were created, and I love that about it. This is also easily taught to more than one grade. I had a kindergartner and second grader this year, and they both easily followed along and seemed to love it. Another pro is that the plans, like I showed you, were already laid out for you. I didn't have to go through and figure out what to teach each day. It was already there, and I just followed that, and then if there was something I didn't want to do, I just didn't do it. And so it's easily adaptable, too, if you kind of want to switch things around, because what I did do, I said I would mention this, is toward the beginning of the year, we were doing, instead of doing 2 days of science, we were doing 4 days of science and then just doing half of like what they called for. So, you know, that one block for one day, we would split it into 2 days, and then we'd split the next one into 2 days. And then we were doing the same thing with history. We were doing it all 4 days, just in short, like in small increments. But that was getting to be too much. So instead, we just switched it to we were doing science 2 days a week, and then on the other days that we weren't doing science, we would do history, and that made it a lot better. So I highly recommend the 2 day a week schedule if that is something that works for you. Another pro would be the journals, because I didn't have to prep anything, scramble to find worksheets, anything like that. It was all right there, condensed. No tearing out of papers, no making copies of anything, and wasting my ink and my paper. It was all right there, and I could just say, grab your notebook and let's go. And then my last pro would be that with their elementary, I don't know about the older grades, I haven't looked into that yet, but with the elementary, there are 6 different topics, I guess you could do, and they do not go in any specific order. There's land animals, sea animals, flying creatures, there's botany, astronomy, human anatomy, and chemistry and physics. And you can do them in any order. They do, however, recommend that the human anatomy and physiology and the chemistry and physics be done in the older elementary grades. However, we didn't do that because our co-op is not doing it that way. So we're going to go with them so that I don't have to teach them do all the experiments. And so that would be my only con, is that I do kind of wish we held off on this till 5th or 6th grade. I think they got a ton out of it. I think they would have gotten even more out of this in 5th or 6th grade, but that's fine. And the only other con I can really think of, and it's not really a con, but I would just recommend not doing it without the CDs unless this is kind of one of your only subjects that you read aloud, because it's a lot of reading. Or unless you have an older kid who can just read it all themselves, and then great. So that would be my only con, really. And the last question we're supposed to answer is if we were going to use this next year. I will not be using anatomy again next year, but I will be using apologia next year. Our co-op has decided to do the chemistry and physics next year, which again kind of stinks because I would rather do that in 5th or 6th grade, but it's totally fine. We will get through it. And there's lots of cool experiments in that book, and they're going to be doing them at co-op and not at home. So anyway, I love this curriculum, and if you have any questions that I didn't address, I would be glad to answer them. Just leave me a comment below, and I will try to get back to you on those. And like I said, check out the playlist below for other science curriculums if you're looking for something new, or if there's something you have been interested in and haven't been able to check out yet. And check out those host channels that I linked below, and I will talk to you next time. Bye.